Right, welcome to part 4. We're dealing with OpenFiler. We've already created the OpenFiler SAN. On that SAN we've created an iSCSI target. We've created another VM machine in VirtualBox, which is our iSCSI initiator, and we've added an iSCSI disk to that SCSI initiator. And now what we need to do is on that disk, on that SAN storage, we now need to build an operating system. So we're going to use the empty CD DVD, and we're going to make it all work. So let's go and find a suitable alternative. So let's pull in a particular release. Let's see, what have I got? Let's try that one. So we've got a suitable Ubuntu image of a reasonable definition. And let's just fire at Wireshark for a moment, and let's again, using the old method, is go and find the appropriate interface and start looking on here. Let's see if we've got any iSCSI traffic. Nothing as yet. Okay, not to worry, let's pull that in. So we are ready to go. Remember, we've told it what to go and load. In fact, there it is, and we're ready to rock and roll. So okay, that we're going to click start, and we're going to see essentially what happens on Wireshark at the same time. So straight away we get some activity going on here, and that's all in line with the install that's taking place. So I'll just bring this across, scroll down to the bottom, let's see what happens. So let's hit English, let's install Ubuntu. Now this of course is going to start building a normal sort of Ubuntu beastie here at the local end, at the initiator end. So let's scroll down, highlight one of the lines. In fact, we'll mark that line using Control M, and that should go dark. So we'll see if that line moves in the background, indicating that in fact what we suspect is happening. Let's just minimize this down a little bit. Come on, grabby. That's it. See, we can see pretty stationary at the moment. Yeah, a bit of setup to do here. Okay, so a bit of setup to do here. So we can OK that. We like the English. And what's it saying here? Everything seems to be okay. We've got enough space to install, so let's go. Yeah, there's some iSCSI activity in the background there. Yep, so there's things are going on. Yep, so it's looked to see what the hard disk drive looks like. So mark that one, just so we can see. Control M. There it is, and we can see if there's any activity. So erase disk and install Ubuntu. Of course, this is the SCSI that we've created. Yeah, it thinks it's 21 gigs. It's amazing how this value changes so dramatically on all of things. There you go, some iSCSI activity again in the background as this wangs its merry way. So it's a normal install from this point forward, and the normal sort of stuff. It's picked up from some other bits and pieces I have running. English and UK, yeah, I'll have that. Okay, recast. Well, I'll give it a password of training. Yeah, of course it's weak. It's training. Require my password to log in. Well, that's fine then, not a problem. And away we go. So this would be a normal install from here. So let's pause that. So we're just pausing here whilst things just happen in the background and it gets ready for its proper install. In fact, you can even see what's going on Wireshark whilst that's doing. So again, I like to see if there's any sort of activity there, just by highlighting one of the lines and see if it disappears off screen. Still doing stuff locally, it would seem. Yeah, so taking stuff off the CD, DVD, the image, locally creating stuff, and then all of a sudden you get blats of activity across iSCSI style as it talks to and from the disk. We can see that it's talking to that remote client, because we've got the 192.168.1.209, so that's the actual iSCSI target server. And we can see the 192.168.1.111. That's actually an address we put on way back when we had some early network issues in part 1, and we needed an IP address on the virtual machine, or the Oracle's host adapter. So that can talk quite nicely, still bambling along locally, and that's the sort of stuff that will be going on for a while as yet. So just pull that in and wait. Right, and it looks like our installation has come to an end. Let's restart. Just pause that, and away we go. Somebody forgot to remove the disk. Stop-a-dee-dop. Ah, he's still there. Yep, we should remove that. And away we go. So all with a bit of trepidation right at the very start. Here she comes. Here she goes, and we're in. Ta-da! So training. Drop that's off. Make sure I can type training, and away we go. We is in. Let's just minimize that down a bit. Okay. Right, so everything seems to be sort of hunky-dory. Let's bring up a terminal in here. Let's see if we can get some configuration details. ifconfig. Yep, so you can see here that the device itself is actually part of a different subnet. It's the 10.0.2.15. It's a completely different device. So we now have to configure this. We have to make it available on network. So I'd have to go in and look at the virtual machine settings for this and make sure that the network settings are set appropriately, and so on and so forth. So there's a few more things to configure here. But as far as the relationship between the iSCSI client and the iSCSI server is concerned, if we look at the other virtual machine that's running, which is the OpenFiler virtual machine, we can see that there's been some iSCSI, and indeed there's some ongoing iSCSI activity here. What if we were to pause that machine? Now if we return back to it and start pressing around, let's see what happens in terms of the actual virtual machine. So everything seems to be hunky-dory here where it is now. Let's do a cd to /etc and see what we can find in there, and into network. Okay, so everything seems to be running, even though the hard disk drives associated with this are not. Oh, here we go. Yeah, VirtualBox execution. Yeah, the connection has been refused. Yep, so there seems to be a problem, Houston. Well, let's unpause it. Let's get it going again. And let's see if we can get this machine running. So unpause this end. Temperamental this time, usually good to go. Just wait for him. Okay, and he should be back with us. So there we are. So it's possible to pause these machines. It's possible to bring them back together again, and they should be. There we go. They're both running now. But it's interesting that behavior now that they are disconnected. So if we look at Wireshark, every time there's some activity on the iSCSI client, that would or the initiator, that would actually then trigger disk input outputs, which would require you to go across the network to get to that disk. So fire at Wireshark, and you'll see a lot of activity there as a result of that. So there we are. We're left now with two virtual machines running, one of which is our SAN, which is on one part of the network, and the other is our iSCSI initiator, which is on another part, and that's reflected by the fact they've got different IP addresses. There's a little bit more work to do to make this iSCSI initiator sort of really a formal part of this network, and some of the settings. What we could do is we could stop that in its tracks as an element. So let's show him. Let's see where he is. He's currently running. We could of course just go in and shut him down. So we could use the normal sort of shutdown commands, which we'll do, and confirm that we are shutting down. And there we go. We can see that the iSCSI init is now in a state of repose. So again, going to the settings, if you're making this available, so sort of things such as network, make the first one not attached, make the second one enabled, and make that part of our host only network currently. Yep, so that's okay, that's ready to rock and roll. In terms of IP address for this, on that side, well, it's essentially going to establish a connection between the iSCSI init VM and the OpenFiler. The iSCSI init VM is part and parcel of that 192.168.1 network. The new operating system, the Ubuntu operating system, we've now actually mounted onto that SAN, that is part and parcel of its own network. So network connectivity and what it can see in the outside world, the Ethernet ports and so on and so forth that it can see, is very much part and parcel of its network. So you know, facing away from the SAN, if you like. So think of it really as a game of sort of two halves between that initializer's address, which we set up, and now the actual VM that's running on there. But I've also, by setting out those two network settings, what I've done is I've allowed this to actually be ported into GNS3, and this will port into GNS3 now as part of that. Well, I say that the way I've actually ported this into GNS3 is to actually create within GNS3 a VM, but a Linux VM or a Windows VM, and installed VirtualBox onto that, and then run the iSCSI initiator within that nested virtual machine. So for the purposes of demonstration, I'm able to actually set up an iSCSI initiator within GNS3. That is again for another day, so hopefully we'll see you on that. But that is as far as I want to go for the time being.